Oh my God, we are live. We are back. We are so back with another episode of the Getaway Takeaway, talking about Nebula's own The Getaway. I am so excited. I'm Naomi. You know what's up. Joining me, as always, my co host JD. JD, how are you? Hi, how's it going?
Hey, I'm fabulous. Another fantastic episode of The Getaway that I can't wait to dive into. And yeah, I'm just living life. We're at home vibing. We are so unbelievably black.
And I just
And
have
it
to
feels great.
say, for anyone listening, you may or may not be hearing the rumblings of a thunderstorm that is hitting New York. And the funnier part is that you and I don't live in the same borough, so it could be coming through and then going to, it's
Yep.
making its way around town. So we both could be experiencing it at different points in time. So we're back to talk about episode 4 of The Getaway. Nobody got left behind at the alpaca farm. We all made it to Moab, Utah. And before we get into the challenge, before we get into the hullabaloo of this episode, JD, let's talk about the results and where we're going from here. We're starting with Patch having received 3 votes and Steven receiving 1 vote, but Patch isn't eliminated. We're carrying on. We talked about how we felt last time, but knowing that it's a two-part vote, that now the next round is going to be an additional vote and that will be a cumulative total. How did you feel about Patch's chances going into the challenge?
Yeah, this is something I think the players also recognized really quickly, but it seemed quite immediately to me that if Patch didn't win this safety, then the numbers were never going to end up in his favor to survive that vote.
Yeah, his odds, he was not making it through the Hunger Games on this one. No
Mm-mm.
way. It was tough. I felt for him because it's one thing to have the slate wiped clean, for example, but it's another thing to essentially be like, well, the tally's still there. We're just adding more to the tally. It feels like a guaranteed way to get somebody buried by the vote.
And I think that's why perhaps the production game design crew decided to introduce immunity this episode.
I think the immunity was a good choice, but I personally would have made some tweaks to it, and we're going to talk about that certainly in a second. So I like how Foreign, Georgia, and Stephen all remark on how bad they feel about voting for Patch, but at the same time, they don't seem to think about the alternative, which is maybe helping Patch in the future. They're very focused on, well, I feel bad, but he's gonna go next. Like
Yeah, I
nothing's
feel like
changed.
that's the mutual level of like snitch thinking where it's like, it wasn't me. Okay, great. Let's move on.
Yeah, no possible change in that front from any of them voting. I want to talk for a second about Stephen and George's relationship because they are doing an excellent job at being like the two-person alliance in the tribe of 6, right?
Right.
They're working very hard, as Stephen tells Georgia, to talk to Foreign and to make Foreign feel like, listen, you're here with us, but in reality, they have each other's backs. What did you think about Stephen telling Georgia this strategy, and how do you feel about them as an alliance?
I honestly love seeing alliances in a game where they aren't necessarily like necessary, you know? The snitch is meant to be at least a singular job. So everyone thinks that they're in this for themselves. But it's interesting to see particularly Stephen and Georgia take the game to this new level of, okay, how do we ensure that me and this person get to the end instead of how do I get myself to the end for the snitch loot?
Hmm. Do you there's a moment where I want to know what you think about this. There's a moment where Steven says uh he says like Georgia could be playing me. And I thought for a second, and at first I was like, playing playing you how? But then I guess the idea would be she's playing him and is trusting Foreign more. But I don't think that is at all a possibility. Very clearly by their alliance, they're working extremely well together. But for a second I was like, does Steven think there's another snitch in the game?
Yeah, to her credit, Georgia does a fantastic job of like being transparent with everyone in the game. Like no one has ever, I don't believe, questioned Georgia for anything that she said or done. So I understand where Steven's coming from, where it's like, is she outsmarting me perhaps? Does she have me fooled? But I feel like what you see is what you get with Georgia, and I feel like that's been shown throughout. So it was interesting to hear him voice that thought, but I also think it's maybe a symptom of like that singular role overthinking, like, am I doing my job enough?
It's so funny you talk about Georgia because I have to say, I think Georgia is the least snitchy snitch of all time.
Mm-hmm.
She is on the loyal team. There is no loyal team, and yet she is on it. It's incredible. She's so funny. It's that, she's a person who like probably wouldn't lie on Survivor, right? Couldn't have the heart for it. And she's trying so hard to be a good team player, but she's not on their team.
Yeah. And I mean, do you remember if she said anything about like just letting everyone else add to the snitch loot and then she'll be at the end to take it all?
She did. That I wrote down because essentially what she says is along the lines of she has to win because if I don't win, there's a chance of me getting voted off. So what I believe she meant by that is she was focused on I need to win the challenge because if I don't have immunity, I could go home. And then what's the point of winning money if I'm not here to win it? Which
Right.
is, what people talk about on the mole a lot. But I have a separate question for that once we get to after the challenge. Because I do think as you bring it up, it's an interesting point that she makes, but she's not helping the snitch stash at all to take it, girl. Okay, no, I really love Georgia. So
It's like the ultimate snitch strategy. Just avoid any suspicion by doing nothing wrong.
be perfect and iconic. So the goal for Georgia and Steven going into this round is to make sure Patch does not get safety or Steven does. Very obvious, of course, because Steven is the one with the only other vote in the game. And there's a real sense of irony in that they will be paired up together in this challenge. And it will certainly be one or the other, and it cannot possibly be both. So the next day, we're in the producer van. Ben mentions that Steven asked him if there was another twist, quote, something else. And the Jet Lag boys discuss getting a little weird with it. So their goal is to misdirect the players about what the twist of the game is. JD, we talked about it a lot last episode.
Mm-hmm.
Should they be worried about misdirecting from the main point of the show at this point? We're essentially going to be halfway done. We voted out half of the cast with 3 people going home as of this episode. It's a final 2. So really, it's going to be one more vote, and then it's going to be the next episode is the finale. Maybe, or maybe next episode is the finale. We're very close. Do they need to be preoccupied with this level of misdirection?
I think from a game playing perspective and just looking from what's of utility to the game of it all, I think it's unnecessary. But for the show of it all, for the big reveal at the end, I feel like it's a good call to try to keep them as far away from the actual twist as possible. So I do think that's a valid strategy. And I actually really thought it's refreshing that they're sort of doing this off the cuff and live and sort of reacting to how like the players are thinking about the game. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, shout out, kudos to the players for being so hardworking and active that the producers are basically freaking out at every turn. That's a really good point. Is it about the reveal and about the final moments, when we find out who the mole is, right?
Right.
Or is it about the players breaking the game and creating a new game out of what they have determined? And I'm sure by the sound of it, it is about the reveal for the Jet Lag team and for the producers behind the show, because If not, they would have just let Patch do whatever Patch wanted to do when he had sort of an idea in his brain about maybe the scheming and the lies that he was being told during the last couple of episodes.
Exactly.
It's a very good point. Well, Foreign explains his vote for Patch in the car as they're on their way to their new location on this next day. And he said, maybe you played up our friendship to insulate yourself as the snitch. It's so interesting how I think this game has gotten so far away from the discussion of like who is the snitch, especially with Patch essentially getting piled on in this vote. It really moved away from like genuine discussions of like, oh, you might be the snitch and so I have to vote for you because this is snitch like behavior, and just more so like, well, we're sticking together so you're going home. How do you feel about the sort of state of the game right now?
Yeah, I it's interesting because it feels a little meta almost, because I guess if you're looking at it like categorically, if you're looking for the snitch, you want to look for the person who is deducting the most money from the loyals. But I feel like we have been so far gone that line of thinking for a couple of episodes now. And even still, like, none of the players actually think that the snitch is still in the game. Or that's the narrative that they're spitting at, that they all seem happy to spin. So it's interesting to see the game sort of remove a pretty key aspect of how it works. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so in this instance, I almost wish that the challenges were more group based with a sabotage in it. Not to talk about the mole too much. I'm sorry, but also it was a good season of the mole. I liked it. This is where it's interesting when they introduce elements like, here's the prize fund. If you want to be selfish, you can take this option, whether it's spend some of the money or don't complete the challenge, however. And we will talk about it after I explain the challenge, but a challenge where it's 2v2, I think, is perhaps the least optimal breakdown of a challenge to incentivize somebody to be snitchy and to steal money or to sabotage the team, the loyalists as a whole.
Especially this late in the game, it does, any snitch like behavior in a challenge like this is pretty damning.
Mm-hmm. And if you lose, which
you're vulnerable,
yeah, you're guaranteed to lose if you make really actionable snitch behaviors. Sometimes I say words and I'm
no.
That was not English. That was not. That was the grammar police are on my butt. If you make moves as the snitch that lose you the challenge, but you're not immune from going home, and it's only 2v2 and the other two people are safe, what's the incentive? We'll talk about it.
It's incredibly risky to leave it up to a coin flip. Yeah.
Yep. So the challenge, which we both set off, love the challenge. Great challenge.
Very amazing race.
Amazing race. Oh my god, I loved it. The running around. They just needed like big backpacks, that's all. I was missing that. Missing that, and like maybe one person screaming at the other, like, if you love me, you'd slow down. I needed it. Okay, so I should mention that actually, save it for later. So we're in Moab, Utah. I wrote in my notes, Chekhov's Dan Toomey crunching on a snack. So the players have 30 minutes and $100 to buy everything on Ms. Terry's shopping list. For every dollar spent or lost, $10 will go to the snitch stash. And for every dollar saved, $10 will go to the loyal loot. So if you spend $32, that's $320 in the snitch stash. And if you save $68, that $680 goes into the loyal loot. Whoever saves more money for the loyal loot wins the challenge. And if you do not acquire an item, it will count as 20 spent dollars. Great rules, great game design. I think it's a great challenge.
Agreed.
Would have been interesting if it was a single person challenge because it's Patch and Steven and Georgia and Foreign. So Steven is incentivized to make sure that Patch loses because it's almost guaranteed that Patch will go home.
Mhm.
Georgia and Foreign want to win really badly because they don't want to go against Patch and Steven. Although we'll talk about it in a second who would go home in that situation. It's just, to me, not a game that you can do 2-on-2 in a situation like this where, yeah, I don't know, someone needs individual immunity, you know?
Yeah, I mean, for as fun as this challenge was, having it be run individually, I think, would be a production nightmare.
Yeah.
So, like, I feel like I'm going to say this like 10 more times this episode. I really enjoyed this challenge. I think getting to see players interact with each other in these challenges is really fun. And to have an individual challenge, I think, would take out some of that. So I understand the decision to go the route of having people pair up.
Yep. Yeah, this is a classic example of, I think, what do you do for the show versus what do you do for the game mechanics. And everybody makes their choice. It's not a crime. It's okay. I just personally, I think it would have been interesting even to do a group challenge, to do all 4 of them, where, you know, maybe the list is a little bit bigger, but at the same time, there's either a nobody wins mechanic or a mechanic built into, like, if you find this item, you'll get the safety. So do you prioritize finding the item and having it, or do you prioritize accomplishing all of the tasks on the shopping list? Let's talk about the shopping list. Okay, first, something that bears the name of a place that is not in Utah and is not Utah. Something with one of your teammates' first or last names on it. Something with a VW bus. Something battery-powered. A pen that writes in any color other than blue, red, or black. A rock, the same color as the pen. And a food Dan has never eaten. And an immediate quote, how the hell do we know what Dan's diet is? So true.
Yeah, that's a valid question. Is Dan Toomey notably a picky eater? Questions that need answers.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. Has he had prickly pear buttermints before? We never got that answer. Hopefully one day.
Doesn't seem like he has.
Yeah,
oh wait, no, they submitted something else.
They did. They submitted a dog treat instead.
Right.
Some great quotes I wrote down from this episode. Can we jaywalk? Quote, let's not actually jaywalk. Let's actually not jaywalk. Producer Amy keeping everybody safe. And then Georgia says this comment that I was like, oh, this is why I love Georgia. Girl, what are you talking about? I think it's really awesome. We're doing a challenge that is really made for Scottish people. I've got this.
I mean, she proves herself correct, clearly.
She doesn't really clarify what I think she's saying, which is that she's good at haggling.
Yeah.
Instead, she just keeps insisting that's a trait commonly known to all Scottish people, which I would not say is something I ever heard before in the zeitgeist.
I mean, I'll take her word for it. It's not something I've heard either.
It really sent me when she said that. I was like, what the fuck is she? I thought she was talking about for a second, like, her name. And I was like, is Georgia a Scottish name? And I was getting really confused. We worked it out. We worked it out on the remix, but that made me laugh. So Steven talks about staying safe versus letting Patch lose. JD, what would you have done in this dilemma if you're on the team with the person with the current most votes, but your ass is next if he is safe, technically, but you're going to get safety?
Yeah, I mean, for Steven, the worst case scenario here is that the vote ties if they don't win this immunity. And we don't know what happens in a tie, but at least it means that Steven isn't out of the game. So it's interesting because maybe Steven could go for this win. And this is something I'm just thinking about now. He obviously isn't going to vote for Georgia. It would just be a matter of convincing Patch to not tie a vote between Foreign and Georgia. So I wonder how that would turn out.
Yeah, so this is something I was thinking about a lot, especially when Georgia voiced like her concern that if she and Foreign are up for elimination, she might go home. And I was thinking to myself, I don't think there's any way that Georgia goes home if she's up for elimination. I think that Foreign voting for Patch is too
True.
strong of an emotion that Patch would almost kind of want to repay the favor or like not trust him. Whereas Georgia is very good at sort of towing that line between like, I'm really nice and I don't know what I'm doing and like, I'm fucking voting for you. So she has that down almost to a science, I feel. And if I was Patch, I'd probably be more upset at my friend who just voted me out. And of course, Steven's never going to vote for Georgia. So in my mind, I was thinking it's not terrible if Steven wins because I do still think that Foreign would go home. What would have infinitely been worse is, of course, if Steven and Georgia are on the same team and they lose.
Yeah.
Then it's definitely Steven in that case.
It's current.
That's when when you pull the buff and you look to see if you got on the swap tribe with your teammate, with your friend or not. Maybe it's better that we're not together.
Exactly.
Oh man, what do you think are the chances that Georgia would have gone home if Patch and Steve win safety?
Yeah, I mean, especially considering how tight that alliance between Georgia and Steven is, I don't think there's any world realistically, especially with how Georgia approached the challenge. I mean, she's made herself out to be pretty unimpeachable, so it would be a very tough sell for anyone to try to paint the target on her at this point.
Yeah, she's just done a really good job in general of like being on the loyal side, as we said. She seems so clearly on the loyal side to the point where I think she forgets that she isn't on the loyal side. So you don't really have anything to draw from as an example to her nefariousness. Another great quote, a couple great quotes. Georgia is the Swiss Army knife of being cheap. Even if I wanted to sabotage it, she wouldn't let me. Foreign. Then the shopkeeper shouting after them, and they go, "What? Did we take something?"
I couldn't believe that the shopkeeper was chasing them down.
That was cute.
Like they were halfway down the block.
This also was so, I mean, obviously very amazing race. Very jet lag too. Hi, we're doing a silly show. Do you have anything to give us for $1? Like so jet lag coded. Maybe that's kind of why it's one of the best challenges we've seen so far, is it is right in the wheelhouse. Do you have any favorite moments from this challenge that you remember?
Ooh, good question. I feel like we brought up all the big ones. I really enjoyed just Georgia's haggling.
Yes.
Like insisting that she got a discount or have it for free or the $1. The whole debacle with returning a $30 mug.
Returning the $30 mug, I like that she says she wasn't even listening to the rules, which is why she bought a $30 mug instead of letting it go for $20. I think the $20 mechanic adds a great level of like, you just got to take the L instead of buying something more expensive. I also enjoyed.
And I mean, as Steven pointed out, is also a good point of subtle sabotage.
Yeah. The pen too, like buying things that are extraneous that don't fulfill the criteria. I love that they both go into like the GoPro electronics shop and they're like, do you have anything battery powered for $5? And this guy's like, fucking no, I sell like $300 cameras, get out. He's like, what are you guys talking about? Get out. Really took me out. Let's talk about the buying is dog food question. So Patch and Steven are trying to buy candy for Dan when they see cheaper dog treats, bacon and cheddar dog treats. Amy says dog food is food. And then, great quote, he's a comedian, though. He might have eaten dog treats. Is dog food, JD?
Dog food is food. I mean, it isn't human food, but that was never specified.
That's true. It just has to be edible.
Edible and digestible.
It's true. I have seen people eat dog food at allergies, and it's the worst thing I've ever seen, and I hate it so
I don't think I could stomach it.
I don't think so either. It looks nasty. But there are like lots of stories of people being like, when I was a kid, I accidentally ate my dog's biscuits. So I guess it counts. I guess it works out.
Can't relate.
So Patch and Steven saved $624, pretty thrifty, so $62.40. Georgia and Foreign saved $711, aka $71.10. Both very thrifty people.
Yeah.
Georgia got a lot of shit for free. I loved Foreign being like, she just gets everything for free.
It's pretty privilege.
Which, hey, listen, Foreign, have some respect for yourself. You're a very pretty man. Like, don't, you got lovely skin, lovely smile. Don't disrespect yourself, Foreign. But yeah, Georgia she's it's one of those things where it's like, if you're weird enough and you ask for it, people might say yes.
Yeah.
C'est la vie. Goes to show The Amazing Race is like when people asked for money on The Amazing Race when that was an element of it, and you just kind of wanted to die because they were asking for money in like a third world country, and you're like, God, this is miserable. Oh no.
Like imagine trying to do that yourself.
Okay. Let's talk about the Ms. Terry mystery. The misdirect of the Ms. Terry mystery. It all feels like a Nancy Drew novel. So they talk about Ms. Terry in the bus before the challenge. They mentioned that Amy in the first prep meeting did a huge presentation on the lore of Ms. Terry. And they were taking notes, they were writing it down, and the producers were looking to point the players in the wrong direction, ask the wrong question, not who is the snitch, but who is Miss Terry. Ben pitches dressing Matt as a chicken or an astronaut, and I think Adam rightly pivots to say, why not dress Matt as Ms. Terry? Quote, it's a Ms. Terry thing, and they don't know why. So here's my question to you, JD. Ignoring the idea of whether or not to point them towards Ms. Terry, if you're a contestant and you see, as you're pulling out, Dan pulling up, maybe some might say Dan pulling off Ben. The Ben look better than Ben.
You said it.
Some people said it. And you see, the puppet master shebang again. And you're sitting there being like, what is going on in this game? What do you think as a player you would think is going on? Because that's the question I'm left with is like, okay, what are you directing them to think about?
Yeah, I mean, especially I think they were all in the same room receiving this information about Mysteries. So it's not even like this is information exclusive to the Snitch. So yeah, I guess the point was to just bring up the question of Miss Terry, not necessarily anything more specific than that. I also feel like that's not a bad route to take. Having them ask too specific of a question, ends them eventually at a dead end. Whereas if you just cast the broad net of what is this thing about Miss Terry, it keeps them asking questions for longer, I think.
That's true. That's a really good point. Because there's that moment where they see the stuff happening next to the bus. They get to the location. Adam sort of says, like, you can talk about it. We didn't mean to show it to you, but you can talk about it. And then Foreign basically is like, I don't want to talk about this. And I'm kind of siding with Foreign. Maybe, hindsight is 20/20, whatever. But if you just see somebody taking a goofy photo and you don't really know what it would have to do with anything, and Ms. Terry has never come up as like anything other than an announcer for the game.
Yeah. The whole thing felt a little too out of context for it to really have the desired effect, I think.
Exactly. It didn't feel like we were looking at something that had been relevant to the game thus far either. So I feel like I understood where Foreign was coming from completely, where he's like, I don't really give a shit about this and I'm moving on because that's not what's important.
It's valid.
Also, Patch was going home. The person who was like number one suspect of your bullshit, he was gone. So don't worry about it. We got two more up. We got one more vote out, final 3, and then it's final 2. Like,
yeah, true.
It did make me laugh. The way that Foreign didn't give a single fuck, where everybody else, love them, lied about seeing what was going on. I thought that was hilarious too. Yeah, I'll say.
Foreign had his quote about like having too thick of a neck to fully turn around. I thought that was so funny.
He kills me. By the way, can we talk a little bit about Steven and the GoPro fan cam where he just keeps looking down the barrel of the lens and they're like, we'll cut this together somehow.
Behind the scenes.
I love it. I think more people should be talking to the camera at all times.
I agree.
Like if I was on Survivor, I would be turning around and being like, "Are these
Just
people
constantly
fucking
breaking the
real?"
fourth wall.
Yes, constantly, right down the barrel. Like Jeff Probst's telling you to apply now. Like, it's like, hello.
Right into your soul.
The only person who will break my soul is Jeff Probst trying to beg people to go on Survivor. Oh no. Also, I want to point out. So first of all, the loyal loot's at like $8,000. The snitch stash is at $3,575. So whoever's gonna win is gonna win almost $4K. Definitely by the next.
Yeah, they double it, don't they?
Yes,
So
each person will win the snitch stash.
Nice.
Also, I definitely saw Dan grabbing the candy at the end of the challenge. So like they announced the winner and you just hear me yoink take the candy.
I missed that.
Oh my god, he's a legend. I love him. It kills me.
Funniest man alive, some may say.
Yes. Some reports are saying, and those reports are live.
On the street.
People on the street, on the streets of New York City who are here right now. So Patch, his pitch is to say, look, I know that it's between me and Steven. I understand it. What if it's a tie? What if we leave it up to chance and we just see what the tie mechanic is? That's really all the pitch he has.
Yeah, that's his only option.
How do you feel? Like, do you see any other way for Patch to pitch this and try and get out of what is almost like dead man walking?
No, I mean, I feel like the reasons for the original 3 votes on Patch were too concrete almost. There's too many reasons to go forward with that vote. It protects that alliance of Steven and Georgia. It keeps Foreign safe. It reestablishes a bond between Georgia and Foreign. It cements too much of what the players have now thought to be the end game, I feel like, for anything other than like a last minute, maybe someone's feeling a little lucky to have any other outcome.
I feel bad because it really is a situation where it's not Patch's fault that he can't get out of this. Again, if he possibly had a chance for immunity and an individual immunity, it would have really shook up the game. But it reminds me of like early Survivor where somebody would come back from Redemption Island and they'd be like, well, we're just voting your ass out again.
Yeah.
We're not letting you get further.
Oh my god, well, that's a perfect comparison.
Or like Big Brother when someone comes back from the jury battle back and they're like, well, you're going.
Yeah, the revolving door. They have an entire name for it.
Yeah, and with no protection, what is Patch to do? I feel bad for him, but this is a really no-win situation.
Yeah, it's pretty doomed.
Isn't there an Australian Survivor twist called Dead Man Walking or something like that I'm remembering?
I believe so, but I don't pay enough attention to Australian Survivor to remember which season it's from.
I can't remember either, but too many twists on Australian Survivor to even think about. Like, frankly,
I know.
If you've got those memorized, you have other problems. Like, that's just how it is. Well, if you are in, let's say, Georgia and Steven's shoes, since they're the primary alliance, there's one other possibility, which I think is kind of insane banana pants, but we should talk about it. Okay. So the idea is that it's either going to be, well, actually, never mind. What I'm saying doesn't matter because Foreign and Georgia are safe. That's the thing. It's like the only person he could turn it on is Foreign, and Foreign is safe.
Yeah. And this is, now that we've been talking about it, I've realized that this is just another one of those instances where limiting options for a vote at Final Four just kind of leaves the whole strategy of it a little dull.
Yeah.
You have less room to work with.
It feels a little bit Feels very like once the veto was won in Big Brother, where it's like
Mhm.
it's your you bitch, like you're going home. Um,
Yeah, everything's
and
sort of like decided, and you're just counting down the clock.
yeah, and I feel for Patch. I think he put up a good fight. He was a good sport
He
about the
really
whole
did.
thing, but definitely it was not ideal for him to be in, of course. Um, so he gets voted out, and then he's told. He says, "I was a snitch." And then Dan is like, "Oh, I was a snitch." And Matt's like, "Yeah, me too." And he's like,
Oh, yeah,
"I
everyone's a
knew it."
snitch.
They gotta find a better way of revealing this. I don't mean to like pick on Sam, who I Sam, Adam, Ben, you're wonderful. If you need a game designer, so then instead I can pick on you for my job, that's fine. But really, I think the thing to say is like you just want the reveal to be more fun, but I don't know how to exactly script it, whether it's
Mhm.
Patch, it's like everybody wants. I think the best reveal moments are the traitors, of course, where they go like, "I've always been a faithful," and the whole room
The
erupts.
whole drama. Yeah.
Yeah, it
I
needs
wonder how
that,
they
but
could pull off a similar effect.
yeah.
I'd love that.
It would be funny on the reverse though, is every time they're going out the door, they're like, "And I was the snitch." What?
And everyone jumps up in shock. I thought I was the snitch. Imagine if someone does that.
Oh man. Well, let's speculate. Let's use our combined brain
What a
power
fun
and think about
experiment.
what's coming up because we're gonna be at final three. Florin, Georgia, and Steven are the final three, with Georgia and Steven in a very, very tight alliance. Do you think there's going to be immunity up for grabs? Do you think that Georgia or Steven would maybe turn on each other? What do you think, JD, is going to happen in the next episode?
I do think that there is going to be an immunity. I would hope it's a singular immunity and not just a challenge for the final two. If only because it's a means of preventing a tie. And I mean, how do you even go past a tie at the final round of the game? But also, I feel like it also. No, I lost it. As soon as I said also twice, I completely lost my train of thought.
Bye bye. It's hard. I mean, look, this game is a lot of fun, and I have really, really been enjoying the season of The Getaway as a whole. But we're also kind of in the inevitable spot. This is why the Survivor finale is like 6 people, because it's like, well,
Mhm.
whatever happens, happens. Um, I hope there's immunity. I hope there is immunity because I think it's always more compelling to have somebody be safe and force choices
Yeah,
upon each other rather than doing like the three-way
that was
vote.
the thought I lost. Yeah, agreed. I think having the, I guess, framed crucial decision of, say, one loyal person having to make the decision between taking the other and potentially the snitch to the end. I feel like for the player's perspective, that's an interesting thing to think about. But also knowing that they themselves are the snitch, ensuring that they get this immunity no matter what the monetary cost might be to the snitch stash.
It's a lot.
No, try saying it 5 times fast. No matter what the contribution is, or whatever what the loss is there, whether players decide to take that cost for immunity. I wonder.
So who do you want to win, JD? Who's striking your fancy as a fun winner? Because it'll be 2 people.
It will be 2 people. I would love to see Foreign win, just because the expected outcome of this entire game is Steven and Georgia, and I love rooting for the unlikely thing to happen. Um, at least how it's been presented thus far.
Yeah.
I think most likely, I mean, if it's what we're speculating and it's one person winning immunity and making a choice, then it's a 2 in 3 chance that one of Steven or Georgia wins this immunity and takes the other with them.
Yep. And I just love an unexpected moment, in Survivor. I want to see the person who's probably going home win immunity, and then everything gets
Mhm.
turned upside down. Um, We'll see. We'll see. Any other favorite moments from this episode? I have to say, I loved finding out that Florin's name is Peter. I don't know if
Yeah.
we should talk
Oh my
about
god.
it, but he got the card.
Peter means what? Like a rock? It said.
I had one
I
of
was
those for
trying to
my
read
name
the.
when I was a
Oh,
kid, even though I think they were like vaguely religious, and
yeah, there
I
was
think
some.
they're
I think there was a Bible quote on the card too.
yeah, I think they're Christian, and I have to say, not a Christian. So I don't know why I had them as a kid.
I mean, it has your name on it. That's all the reason you need.
Okay, play by play. I was watching on my big screen, and I was like, I think that one said Naomi when Patrick was looking
Oh.
for his, and Patrick was looking for his, and then I paused it. It says Norma.
Oh, so
Darn.
close.
I did get my eyes checked today also, so maybe it's kind of evidence that
Get a refund, maybe.
maybe.
Call insurance.
So upped my prescription, but that was a cute moment. I also really enjoyed this several-minute debate on whether Dan Toomey may or may not have had prickly pear buttermints before.
I mean, Dan's a weird guy. You never know.
He's a comedian. You never know with those comedians.
Mm-hmm.
Any standout moments for you, JD?
I'm trying to think of anything that we haven't already touched on. I just love this cast. I'm having so much fun just watching these creators interact with each other. I'm enjoying the show a lot.
Yes, I think that is kind of maybe my big takeaway of this episode is I hope that the jet lag guys create more. So there was this article that came out a couple days ago. I think it's from Variety about the big independent streamers, including Nebula, including our fave Dropout, which, by the way, oh my, we'll talk about that in a second. We'll jump to the Dirty Laundry season 4 in a second. But one of the big things I think is just it's so panel showy. It's so British panel show coded, and
it's a French humor.
Definitely. I welcome it. Yeah, if Sam and Ben and Adam and everybody at Nebula and Amy can keep scheming up more ways for YouTubers to get together, these fun personalities to create a mini show, I'm all for it.
100% co-sign. Also, I wanted to bring up props to Patch and Steven for that jog. It looked far. So hats off to making it.
They were, when Steven's like, do you do cardio? And he's like, no. Okay, well, when it's a lot more obvious that I don't do cardio, you know what I mean? Patch was really booking it.
Mm-hmm.
Good for them. They're not, it shows that maybe Patch could do a season of jet lag, running for a train or something.
Imagine this whole show, this entire Getaway was a scheme to find the next jet lag guy.
Yeah. Legally Blonde, the search for the next Elle Woods, but for jet lag. So true. The other thing I wanted to talk about, let's do it. Let's dive into it. The Dirty Laundry season 4 trailer for Dropout was released the other day. The boys are back with Michelle Kerr, which loved that. I can't wait to find out weird facts about the 3 of them, 4 of them, but also pound the alarm. Natalie Bolton
sighting in 2024
with Parvati and Sari. That's crazy.
I'm so excited for this season of Dirty Laundry. It's unreal.
Just it blew my tiny little mind. Oh my good God, I cannot wait for that.
It's the 11th, right?
I think so.
I think that's what I read.
I've been really enjoying the Smarty Pants Society. If anybody is not on Dropout, maybe you pause because Team Changer's over. Smarty Pants Society is so funny. But I just love Dropout so much. I love that they're collaborating with Nebula. And I cannot wait to see it.
So sick. I'm loving these indie streamers. They're putting out really fresh content, and I thank them all for it.
Thank God. Well, JD, what is going on with you? Anything new before we sign off for the episode?
I guess we can start plugging Survivor New York now.
Oh my God.
August 22nd, 25th. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Am I forgetting email? Maybe.
Well, we're on TikTok, but that's Chris. I don't do that. Yes, it's Survivor New York on TikTok. Yeah, we're gonna be live streaming all weekend. The 23rd, 24th, 25th game is on. The game is afoot. So if you want to watch strangers play Survivor in the Woods, you definitely want to tune into Survivor New York. I cannot wait.
A lot of fun.
If you want to know how many players we have playing the game, if you want to see the season theme ahead of time, follow us on Instagram if you don't already, because once we hit 1,000 followers, we're going to be sharing all of that. And we're very close, but we need you. We need the what is it?
Join us.
We need the fans to follow the account. That's what we need at this moment in time. We're so excited, and we hope you will tune in. I'll also just say, make sure to give Silent Podcast 5 stars. We're so happy to have you here. If you enjoy this coverage, if you want to hear more JD and I talking about things like jet lag or other shows, let us know. Give us a 5-star review. I'm on Twitter at Naomi Calhoun. JD, you're dead CRSH, which I thought was Crash. Right. Turns out it's Crush.
It's whatever you want it to be. Vowels
are something new every day. Yeah. So follow us there. Check out Silent Podcast. A lot of Big Brother going on right now. Exit interviews with Matt. Probably Lisa coming up too. So stay tuned. Thank you for watching. JD, thanks for being here as always.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Adios.